Okay, continuing in 6.1 on page 2 of the notes, here's a what if. As we go through the term or taking notes, I try to highlight what if certain things would happen. We can't cover every type of example on the page, but I do want to give you a heads up for things you might encounter. Start building your thinking and observation skills so that you're ready. And again, remember, homework is how you get confident and then build up your pacing so that you're ready to face new problems on the exams. Okay? So what if they ask you to take a polynomial subtracted from another polynomial? So we'll call it polynomial 1 subtracted from polynomial number 2. Well, what does that mean? Is that polynomial number 1 minus polynomial number 2? Or is it polynomial number 2 minus polynomial number 1? So remember, we talked earlier about the fact that order matters when you're talking about subtraction. So, because 5 minus 3 is different than 3 minus 5. One is a positive 2, one's a negative 2. So, when we use the word difference, find the difference of two polynomials, it was always just first item mentioned minus the second item mentioned. But subtracted from is indicating a particular order. So let's try it with numbers to make it make sense for us. To make sense which direction. Let's try some numbers. So let's say we had 5 subtracted from 3. And this is a technique that you can use throughout algebra. When you're trying to figure out something that involves letters, you can pick some numbers to help it make sense for you. Because what works for numbers works for algebra. Because all algebra is covering up some of the numbers, making them unknown using variables. So the rules have to stay the same. Whatever works for numbers has to work for variables. So we're going to try to make this make sense. Which order is it? Is it the first minus the second, or is it the second minus the first? When you say 5 subtracted from 3, well, is that 5 minus 3, or is that 3 minus 5? If I'm subtracting 5 from 3, if I have $3 in the bank and I try to withdraw 5, if I try to take away 5 from 3, that actually gives me a negative value. That should be 3 minus 5, because that's what equals negative 2. This is equal to a positive 2, and that doesn't match the situation. So 5 subtracted from 3 means that we take 3 minus 5. It's the second item minus the first. Second item minus the first item. So that's something that you either need to memorize when you see subtracted from something else. It's always the second minus the first. If you don't want to memorize that, or if you are fearful that you may forget, then keep track of what it means. And you can use numbers to remind you. Write it out, 5 subtracted from 3. Which one is it? Well, this is the 3 minus 5 is what makes sense. And then match that up. It's second item minus the first item. So in this case, it needs to match up with what's written in green here, polynomial number 2 minus polynomial number 1, because it's the second item minus the first item. Right? So just watch for that. Next set of examples say to use the vertical format to add or subtract the polynomials. Vertical format means they're just writing one polynomial on top of each other so that things are lined up. Very similar to the addition method when we were solving systems in chapter 5. And we'll either be adding or subtracting the polynomials. So in this case, we're going to be adding, which is like writing a big plus sign out here, and then looking, the vertical format has the like terms already lined up. Okay, so on the vertical format, the like terms are lined up underneath each other. And from there, we just add them up. So negative x squared plus 2x squared, this is like having a negative 1 in front of the x squared. So it's negative 1 plus 2, that gives you a positive 1x squared, or just positive x squared, however you want to write that. And then we've got 13x squared plus 13x to the fourth plus 7x to the fourth, which will give you 20x to the fourth. And that's all they want you to do. Don't make these more complicated than they need to be. Remember, we're at the beginning of chapter 6. Things are going to be fairly simple and basic as we get started here. We don't go any further because these are not like terms. 20x to the fourth plus x squared, you're done there.